This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
With no fees or minimums on checking accounts, it's no wonder the Capital One bank guy is so passionate about banking with Capital One. If he were here, he wouldn't just tell you about no fees or minimums. He'd also talk about how most Capital One cafes are open 7 days a week to assist with your banking needs. Yep, even on weekends. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank. Capital One, N.A., member FDIC.
Hi, and welcome to The Short Stuff. I'm Josh. There's Chuck. Jerry's here, too, sitting in for Dave. And the three of us are on the run through the Canadian Arctic, recreating the story of the Mad Trapper. And it's not going very well for us.
That's right. The Mad Trapper of Rat River, a.k.a. perhaps, I don't even know about perhaps, almost certainly Canada's most infamous, unknown person on the lam and the largest manhunt in Canada's history, conducted to try and get this guy.
Yeah. This is, I saw it referred to as like an iconic Canadian story. This guy just tore S up in 1931, made international headlines, and died. It's still to this day, no one knows who he is. And not one of those things where like, we're pretty sure it's this guy, we just can't prove it. They have no idea who this guy is. They're starting to kind of chew around the edges of it, but the fact that he is still unidentified just makes it that much more interesting. But even if he were identified, Chuck, his story is still just totally fascinating on its own.
Yeah, it's not like Somerton Man, because that was the most interesting thing about that, was the mystery of who he was. It wouldn't matter if this guy was indeed Albert Johnson, who was his alias. It's a remarkable story that started in July 1931 when this guy, Albert Johnson, came and moved there. They think he may have come from Sweden, according to certain people who talked to him here and there. But he was a man of very few words, as we'll see. When he arrived in the vast remote area of the Northwest Territories near Fort McPherson and built a little 8 by 10 foot cabin near the Rat River.
Yeah, and we're talking like the northernmost parts of Canada, like basically along the
Desolate.
Arctic Ocean.
In the 30s.
He was essentially living where the guys from the Terror and the Erebus that we talked about were trying to get to when they were like on their march down toward Canada. They had they done this in 1931, they might have run into Albert Johnson. He was that far up, right? So this is a really, really rugged, wild, dangerous place to live. And like you said, he arrived in July. And a few months after that, I think in November or December of 1931.
December
of 1931, a couple of trappers from the First Nations who lived up there got in touch with one of the local police and said, hey, there's this guy, his name's Albert Johnson, and he's messing with our trap lines, and he's not supposed to do that. So can you go tell him to stop doing that? And 3 days later, a couple of cops just knocked on Johnson's cabin door, assuming that they were just going to talk to him and tell him to stop doing that, and that would be that, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are the Mounties, so these guys are not messing around. The story is a little confusing because everywhere you look, it's a little different. But from what I gathered, there were 3 total visits. One visit when he basically said, get the heck out of here, and pointed a gun at them. A second visit when 2 guys came back, and this time he supposedly refused to talk at all. And when they went to look through his windows, he just covered his windows up and ignored them. And then
he pulled down the blind and went, masher.
I guess 4 total, because the third one was when those 2 guys plus 2 more, I think it was Alfred King and Joe Bernard and 2 more guys, came back with warrants, forced the door over, and he shot King, and a brief firefight ensued. And then finally the 4th visit when they brought a bunch of guys with dynamite and camped out for 3 days outside his cabin.
Yeah, they threw dynamite on his roof to flush him out. And it certainly blew up the roof as expected. It also took down some of the walls of the cabin. And amazingly, Albert Johnson survived. And even more amazingly, he still refused to come out and engaged in a gunfight with this posse that the Mounties had assembled to go take this guy out. Because like he shot at an officer who just wanted to tell him to stop messing with trap lines. Like shot and tried to kill him, right? So this guy was already a big deal by this time, and he managed to hold off this posse from taking him alive. They actually had to get out of there because they were running low on food and the weather was terrible. This is December in the northernmost reaches of Canada along the Arctic. Not a time you want to be outside. Apparently the temperature was at negative 45, and this guy's holding these guys down in a gunfight. And then they leave, and 4 days later they come back, and now they find that this destroyed cabin is now empty. He's fled, and a blizzard has covered up his tracks.
Yeah, I saw that it was like a 60-mile hike just to get to his place.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they came back 4 times, when this guy probably could have opened the door the first time and said, all right, I won't mess with their traps anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably would have been the end of it. But he managed to evade them on this manhunt by stepping in caribou tracks and from these storms that would come through. And maybe that's a good time for a break?
Yes.
All right, we'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Here's a fact for you. In the United States, there is a break-in every 26 seconds, and that means that somewhere right now, an intruder is getting closer. And the problem with most security systems is that they only alert you after the break-in has started, and that's too late.
Well, that's what makes SimpliSafe different. They use alerts. SimpliSafe's U.S.-based live agents, they identify threats on your property and help deter them before they actually break in. So the intruder never gets into your house. The crime is stopped before it even starts.
That's right. And another great thing about SimpliSafe is they have no long-term contracts. They give you peace of mind and great value with their monitoring deterrence plans because they just start at about $1 a day.
Yeah, SimpliSafe sent us a setup years back, and I still use mine every day.
Yeah, and apparently setup, you can do it by yourself in under 30 minutes, so it's a really good value and it doesn't take long.
So if you want to experience the SimpliSafe peace of mind, you can take advantage of the SimpliSafe discount offered to Stuff You Should Know listeners. Right now, you can get 50% off your new system by visiting simplisafe.com/stuff. That's half off at simplisafe.com/stuff. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Work can be a little weird. One minute you're in a meeting that could have been an email. The next you're trying to decode corporate jargon that somehow means nothing. And don't even get us started on the quick sync that turns into a 45-minute deep dive.
Yeah, well, the truth is figuring out your career isn't always straightforward. Whether you're trying to grow, pivot, or just stay relevant, it can feel like you're navigating it all on your own. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in.
That's right. LinkedIn can help you grow your career, helping you confidently navigate your path with insights, ideas, and inspiration from your professional community. You can stay up to date with the latest trends in your field, connect with people who get it, and discover opportunities tailored to your goals, your experience, and what actually matters to you.
Whether you're looking for something new or just trying to grow where you are, LinkedIn gives you the tools and connections to move forward with confidence. Because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more. So, I don't think we've said yet, this now there's a manhunt underway. This guy who they want to take in for shooting at cops is on the run in the Canadian wilderness. And this manhunt lasted 7 weeks.
Yeah.
From December to mid-February. This guy kept evading them. They'd catch up to him. He'd shoot at them. They'd have a firefight. One time he killed a cop, Constable Millen, who was like a member of this posse that was hunting him down. And he would manage to fend them off every time they caught him in a firefight. And one of the other interesting facts about this, Chuck, is this is the first time an aircraft was ever used in a manhunt, as far as anyone knows.
That's right. They got a pretty legendary WW-1 Canadian fighter pilot named Wilfred Wap May to come in. Little side note here, Wap May was in the dogfight that ended the Red Baron's life. So a very sort of famous Canadian fighter pilot flying above for the first time, seeing if he could just spot trails from above.
Yeah, I saw a photo that he took from his aircraft of like this, like he was really high up, and there's a little tiny speck in the middle of a frozen river, and it's identified as Albert Johnson.
Oh,
And then there's
wow.
like 3 more tiny specks coming out of the wood line chasing after Johnson. And Watt May got a picture of it. And it's just, when you understand what you're looking at, it's just astounding what these guys were running through
cool.
over the course of 7 weeks. It's nuts.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so people heard about this thanks to the radio, which was still a pretty new invention. But this story that was kind of playing out over the news in real time actually helped sell a bunch of new radios because people didn't want to miss out.
Yeah, supposedly this is one of the really first big news stories to be broken via electronic media. So you've got your first search and rescue, or I guess not search and rescue, search and destroy
Sure.
mission featuring a plane. You've got the first big news stories breaking on radio for the first time. One of the weird parts of this case, I said he was a man of few words, is as the story goes, this guy didn't say a word the whole time. Like there was never like, it's my right to be here.
Right.
Get away. I'm just trying to live. Like supposedly this guy said nothing to any of them.
That is so unsettling. And
It is totally.
It's another thing that just kind of adds to his legend too.
Yeah, for sure.
So, people by this time, this was during the Depression, and a lot of the public that was following the story were actually rooting for him. Because remember, this was a time when the public rooted for like bank robbers and other
Folk
criminals
heroes.
and outlaws because the establishment had basically screwed everything up and taken advantage of everybody. So there were people who were pulling for him. And even if you weren't pulling for him, it was just astounding what this guy was doing with just I think he had a rifle and a shotgun. He had his clothes, and he was like out maneuvering and surviving against this posse that was on his trail. And I also saw, Chuck, that one of the unsung or overlooked groups that was part of this posse were some of the First Nation members who helped track him. That this posse probably would have lost his trail in the first few days had it not been for the trackers that came with them.
Yeah, I think the Luchot people were the ones who initially filed the complaint.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see which tribes helped out in the search?
I didn't. I just saw that one of the members' last name was Rat, so I'm guessing he was named after the Rat River.
Of the Rat River Rats?
Family was. Yeah, exactly.
So another part of the kind of a fun fact of this story is, or at least part of the lore, is that at one point they had him pinned in a steep canyon, and he supposedly scaled a near vertical wall of ice basically to get out of there.
Yeah. So at this point, they're like, this guy is not human.
Yeah.
And again, another First Nations member comes through. I think somebody came back and mentioned that they heard a rifle shot in this like totally desolate area. And the Royal Canadian Mountie Posse were like, well, they can only be Albert Johnson. And they headed that way. And they found his trail and they started chasing him. And they engaged in one last firefight with him. And this one, Albert Johnson didn't come out of alive.
That's right. They got him finally after this long manhunt. A very successful evasion for a long time. But yeah, they eventually got him. No one know. I mean, part of the second part of this is just the mystery. Like, not only who was he literally, but like who was this guy to move way out there to not, they supposedly back, closer to town, even though I'm sure that was super small as well. It was like a very friendly place, and he was known as a loner and very unfriendly, which was not the norm. And like, who was this guy who just moved out to the middle of nowhere and like didn't speak a word this entire time?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Why would he do this?
Yeah. Which is just deepens the mystery further. By the way, one other thing, it was Charlie Rat who was the guy that helped the Mounties find
nice
Albert Johnson.
What a name.
So they had a picture of him. There's a very, I guess famous if you're Canadian, picture of his dead body on like a morgue slab.
Boy, I wouldn't mess with the guy.
No, he looks rough and tough for sure.
He does.
He like you could not know his story and see that picture of his dead body and be like, I'll bet that guy could survive in the Canadian wilderness for 7 weeks with the cops on his trail.
Yeah, for sure. I would want nothing to do with this guy.
So they took this picture because they wanted to circulate it. Everybody wanted to know who this guy was. And it made it in all the papers in Canada and the United States, and no one came forward. The details of his life and demeanor didn't match anything that anybody knew of. I mean, like, people came forward with tips, but none of them were legitimate or panned out. And very quickly, this guy just became this anonymous weirdo who did some crazy stuff in the winter of 1931.
Yeah, so like you said, they exhumed his body in 2007 once DNA sampling was, a viable thing. And that has enabled some genetic comparisons to possible relatives. They obviously didn't, no one has come forward with it like a perfect match or anything. But they made comparisons with more than 24 families, and they have some strong circumstantial evidence that what family he may have been from. And where they have landed now is they're pretty sure that his background is Swedish, and he has been linked to multiple descendants of a gentleman named Gustav Magnusson, who died in 1853, and Britta Svendottir, who passed away in 1846. And they are pretty sure that he's a descendant of them, but nobody from any of those bloodlines has come forward either.
No, and this company called Othram, a genome sequencing company, they have figured out a few other things about him, that he almost certainly grew up in the Midwestern United States. His autopsy revealed that he had extensive and expensive dental work, and that he had scoliosis.
Yeah,
so this guy did this for 7 weeks, scaled a near vertical face cliff with scoliosis as well. He was just amazing in a really kind of specific way.
I think one foot was bigger than the other one too, which
good Lord,
I thought was a very strange little add-on.
Yeah. So, but also, if he grew up in the Midwest, like, the stuff he was doing, there's not many places to learn that. I mean, I guess if you're from like upper Minnesota or something, but I'm guessing comparing an upper Minnesota winter to an upper Canada winter is like night and day.
So they contend he was never like a Swedish resident?
They don't necessarily contend that. He could have been a transplant from Sweden who was just raised in like a Swedish-speaking community.
Yeah.
So he could have
what I just wonder
Swedish. Yeah.
About like ice wall climbing and stuff. He could probably do that in Sweden.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Apparently based on his teeth isotopes that he was raised in or grew up in the Midwestern U.S. Yeah.
All right.
So maybe one day we'll know.
Maybe. I mean, we found out the Somerton man's identity, right?
Yeah, but I don't think we ever mentioned it on the episode, on the podcast, did we?
Yeah, I think we read a listener mail because we got like 10,000 Australians writing us.
Great. Well, if it ever comes out who the mad trapper of Rat River was, everybody, we want to know so we can tell everybody else.
For sure.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Chuck, I think Short Stuff is out.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.